Why Leonor's crown comes with a price. Stone floors before sunrise. A flag barely moving in still air. The palace awake long before the city remembers it exists. This is not symbolism for the public. It is instruction for those who inherit it. For Princess Leonor, the crown is not a destination. It is an obligation signed before consent is possible. In Spain, inheritance is contractual. And contracts extract payment, not in wealth, in time, in restraint, in the quiet surrender of options that others never realized they had. The first misunderstanding arrives early. People imagine royalty as privilege accumulated. In reality, it is choice reduced. Every path narrowed until only one remains visible. This is the living thread of continuity. Spain's monarchy does not survive on affection. It survives on structure, on the belief that the institution will outlast the individual, and must therefore override her preferences without apology. By the second minute, the reframing begins. The question is not what Leonor gains from the crown. It is what she must permanently give up to carry it. Privacy is the first payment. Timing is the second. Freedom of sequence, the ability to decide when, is surrendered entirely. National identity is woven into these rituals because they replace spontaneity with predictability. The crown cannot improvise. Improvisation signals instability. By the fifth minute, the words return, heavier now. Because this cost increases over time. The closer succession becomes, the more expensive each visible choice grows. There are expectations that can never be articulated publicly. By minute 8, the silence around them becomes palpable. What cannot be said is that preparation is not the same as readiness. Readiness is irrelevant. Alignment is everything. This is the deeper mystery. A future sovereign may be fully capable, and still be required to wait. Because the institution moves only when law, memory, and public calm converge. By the midpoint, a strain begins to surface. Not emotional, institutional. Spain operates in a world that demands transparency faster than tradition can safely deliver it. Here lies the fault line. An ancient structure navigating modern impatience. Across the Atlantic, this restraint is read carefully. In the United States, it signals stability, a system that refuses spectacle. In the United Kingdom, it resonates with precedent. They recognize the danger of crowns that confuse visibility with legitimacy. Canada and Australia interpret it as constitutional discipline. Germany reads it structurally, authority preserved through delayed gratification. At minute 14, the point of no return emerges. There is a moment when the cost of waiting overtakes the cost of moving. When hesitation begins to resemble fragility. This is where duty sharpens. The crown demands not just sacrifice, but correct sacrifice, offered at the correct moment. By minute 19, the future threat comes into view. Not revolt, not rejection, but erosion, the slow loss of meaning if the public begins to see obligation as privilege mismanaged. This is what the institution guards against relentlessly. And in the final moments, the words return one last time. The palace remains steady, the contract remains binding, and the price is still being calculated, quietly, precisely, as history waits to see whether continuity will be paid in full. The cost does not end with acceptance. It compounds. What follows the first oath is not celebration, but calibration. Every appearance measured, every absence noted. Continuity is not abstract here, it is embodied in visible presence, and absence carries its own meaning. For Princess Leonor, the institution teaches patience as discipline. Not passive waiting, active restraint. Spain's monarchy learned this lesson the hard way. The modern crown survives because it learned when not to move, when to slow the rhythm of history instead of accelerating it. This is where the public story quietly diverges from the internal one. The public sees preparation. The institution sees sequencing. Nothing happens simply because the air is ready. Things happen only when the state can absorb them without fracture. That is the unspoken rule. By now, the tension has shifted. The question is no longer what will be asked of her. It is how long the institution can continue asking before the weight becomes visible. This is not personal pressure. It is structural gravity. Spain does not crown rulers. It sustains symbols. And symbols must arrive at precisely the right moment, late enough to appear earned, early enough to appear inevitable. Silence becomes policy here. Ambiguity becomes protection. What is not clarified cannot be misinterpreted prematurely. This is why so much feels delayed. Why milestones appear staggered rather than celebrated. Why certainty is rationed. At this stage, international observers read between the lines. In Washington, restraint is understood as governance maturity, a system resisting populist acceleration. In London, it is familiar territory, The long apprenticeship, the visible waiting. Canada and Australia interpret it as constitutional steadiness, proof that the Crown still understands its ceremonial limits. Germany sees an old institution adapting with controlled minimalism. These interpretations matter, because legitimacy is now global. By the time the internal clock reaches its next threshold, the institution faces its quiet dilemma. Reveal too much, too soon, and the mystique dissolves into scrutiny. Wait too long, and the symbol risks seeming distant. This is the narrow corridor where the heir walks. There is a moment, rarely discussed, when personal identity must be sealed off from public function. Not erased, contained. This is the price most people never see. Not sacrifice of comfort, but sacrifice of authorship. Your life is no longer something you write. It is something you steward. By now, the institution has already decided what must be preserved. The only variable is timing. This is where history leans forward. Because once the sequence advances, it cannot be reversed. Visibility increases, silence shortens, and every gesture begins to echo beyond its intention. The Crown does not forgive misalignment. It absorbs individuals and survives them. And so the waiting continues, not as hesitation, but as strategy. A strategy designed to ensure that when the moment finally arrives, it feels not like change, but like continuity revealing itself exactly on schedule. The story does not end here. It does not even pause. It simply holds its breath, aware that the next movement will not belong to one person, but to history itself.